Does this microphone work? Okay, cool. Right on. So the selfie thing, I learned something horrible about that. Like when you're taking a selfie of the whole audience with you in the photo, you know how famous people always like post like, oh, I did this. A bunch of those are fake. I learned it from a photographer. They just hold their arm up and then the photographer like has a camera where their arm isn't. I was like devastated to learn that the other day. Anyway, yeah. Yes, that's totally an aside. But I did learn it with the CTO of Amazon, so sort of related. Anyway, yep, I'm Kat. The first thing, efficiency, is in the title of my talk, and this is not a talk about Doge. Okay? So, sorry or you're welcome, depending on what is relevant for you. This is me. If there's any low vision folks in the audience, I'm a white lady with a mullet type thing, and I'm wearing a black shirt that has Nubank's principles on it. One of them is smart efficiency, and a black skirt. Yes, and you already heard my bio, but you may or may not know what Nubank is. Who knows what Nubank is? Are you closure enthusiasts? 2 people. Okay, good talk. Nubank is a very large financial institution. It's the 4th largest, I believe, in Latin America right now. So over 120 million customers. I think I'm supposed to say 122 million right now, according to our comms people, across 3 countries, Brazil, Mexico, and Colombia. It was founded in 2013, so there's 120 whatever million customers over the past 12 years, which is a lot. Yes. And here I'll show you, like, it legitimately is just a lot and keeps growing even more. So I was hired in 2021 before we IPO'd, and, there's like 30-something million customers, and today, I guess, 123 million customers. So really, really rapid growth. How did we do that? Because that's a huge number, even compared to really old banks in the US or Europe. How did we do that? This way. So this is our cost to serve per active customer, and it is extremely low. That's the cents per month. So 90 cents, 70 cents, 80 cents. Those are active customers. They're not just sitting there. Those are active customers doing something. That's how we got to 120-something million customers, because we can reach customers that are not profitable for incumbent financial institutions, because we have a very, very, very low cost to serve. So that's how we can get to that huge number, is by offering financial services to people that literally incumbent banks just can't afford to serve them. So it is very, very, very important to us. Like, Nubank ceases to be as an institution if we don't have this super low cost to serve. Very important, okay? And to give you an idea, traditional banking is really expensive. There's tons of things. We're a digital bank, right? So we don't have branches. Branches are really expensive. Even banks that are like looking to the future and adopting technology, still cost to serve is going up and up and up. Also, I don't know that a lot of people outside of financial services realize how expensive cash is, but it's just a physical thing like anything else. You have to move it, you have to store it somewhere, and in the case of this physical thing, cash, you have to spend a lot of money securing it, right? So banks that do a lot in cash pay that price of doing a lot in cash, dealing with a physical good. So there's a lot of reasons why those incumbent banks can't afford to serve every person who would like to have financial services. And those folks tend to have lower balances, both in terms of deposits and also in terms of credit. and they do many, many, many small transactions. So they're pretty high-cost customers, doing a lot of transactions without actually making a lot of deposits. So TLDR, there are a lot of or underbanked people in the world right now, tons and tons. So we have 27% of the world's adults are unbanked or underbanked. For a while, I was one of them. I didn't come from a background where I even knew how to engage in that ecosystem. So we're talking about over 1 billion adults, okay? It's a huge number. A lot of the global economy is dependent on very small businesses. Most of those are unbanked or underbanked. And then if you don't have a bank, you're probably dependent on cash, right? Well, your access to cash is also degrading. ATMs, banks are getting rid of them because, like I said, they're expensive. Branches are disappearing. They're expensive. So especially in rural communities and things like that, many governments across the world are coming up with different programs or different ways of licensing financial institutions in order to keep banking services or even just keep cash available to many communities across the world. So a lot of times, obviously I run in financial services circles, and people will be like, banks are evil. They're shutting down the ATMs. Oh, they're terrible. Or why can't we use cash anymore? The government is trying to spy on me, blah, 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 all this stuff. Those things could be true, but they're actually just reasons that have nothing to do with incumbent banks being evil or governments being evil. They're just logistical problems with financial services in this day and age. So perhaps there are conspiracies, or perhaps it's just very expensive and hard to do. I prefer to look at the second one because it means that people are still good, which I would like to believe in. Yes, so what do we do about that, right? At Nubank, this is the way that we think about efficiency, okay? When we're thinking about keeping that cost to serve very low, thinking about the platform that we have and keep it efficient, this is what we think about: supply side efficiency, demand side efficiency, and the culture of efficiency that we have. I'm going to tell you a little story. We'll have a little story time with Kat where we can go through specific examples. Okay, so here we go. Story time. Yay! I feel like this crowd needs a story or another cup of coffee. Both? Okay. All right. So like I said, we were founded in Brazil, okay? And Brazil actually has a very tech-forward central bank, a very tech-forward stock exchange, and I think it's for a lot of the reasons that we already covered, right? Being tech-forward in some cases is just cheaper than doing things the old way. So it's, 2020-ish, 2021, and the Central Bank of Brazil says, we know cash is going away, and we want to provide normal people and small businesses with another way to transact. We know everyone's pulling ATMs, pulling branches, so we want to offer something else. So they come up with this proposal, which is Pix. Has anyone heard of Pix before? All right, one person. Okay, so it's instant payments, instant settlement. It's available 24/7. It is low cost. It is free to the people who are sending and receiving Pix. That is a requirement of the system. So if you are a financial institution and you wish to participate in the Pix ecosystem, you must offer Pix for free to your customers, okay? And it's administered by the Central Bank of Brazil, Bacen, okay? Now there's always someone that says, oh, so it's Venmo. It is not Venmo, okay? The money, I send Jeff a Pix, and it just goes to his regular bank account. It doesn't go into like a Venmo account that then he transfers to his bank account. It just goes to whatever bank account he has signed up with Pix, the one where he pays his bills or whatever else. So it settles to your regular account instantly. And so people say, oh, so it's Zelle. It is not Zelle, okay? Zelle is not the central bank, right? So you have to trust the participants in Zelle, okay? Here, you just trust your central bank. And that also means that the central bank, not a conglomerate of other banks, gets to tell the participants what to do, okay? So Nubank, was an underdog at this point, right? And Basen says, well, you seem to be offering financial services to a lot of people that need financial services. We're going to let you participate as long as you can follow these rules. I don't know if that would happen with Zelle or not, right? Who knows what the decision is to participate. Okay, are people clear on what Pix is, at least a little bit, and what it is not? Okay. It's important for the rest of the story. All right. So the first thing that we'll talk about is supply side efficiency. So Nubank, we feel great. Basen said that we can participate in this, even though we're just the underdog. We're so pumped. We get to be in the first round as long as we can meet the technical requirements. And then we're wait a second, there could be some issues with this. We already have very low cost customer or high cost, low profit customers, right? And we have to offer it for free. So many incumbent financial institutions were like, okay, we'll use our super profitable customers, our investment customers and stuff like that to fund kind of the Pix infrastructure and the Pix rails, because it's a different set of rails from other payments. And we could not do that, right? So we were like, oh my gosh, there's going to be a lot of stress on our system. So we started looking at supply-side efficiency. And what supply-side efficiency is, it's that you want to pay the best price for what you buy. So for the compute, the storage that we were buying, we want to pay the best price. And we also realized that there was going to be a big shift in our ecosystem in terms of how much compute we would buy, because up until then, the primary interaction channel with our customers was plastic, right? Tap with a credit card. With Pix, it was going to turn into the app. So we knew that a bunch of services, due to our app architecture and all of this stuff, were really going to need to scale up. So we started looking at how can we pay the best price for all of that compute we're going to have to buy. And of course, we are mostly on AWS. They're kind of the preferred cloud within Nubank, especially for the transactional environment. So we, of course, negotiated with them, but we also looked at just honestly, things that sound insane when you talk about them. So one of the things that we decided was we have a microservices architecture. How much of that can we run on the spot market? And if you don't know what the spot market is, it's where AWS sells excess compute. The deal is you can buy it at sometimes a huge discount. Amazon can say to you, I need that back now. You have 2 minutes to sort yourself out. Good luck with that. So we looked at our microservices and decided we were going to run a lot on spot, okay? So, a lot of the time we're running 60% of our footprint or something like that on spot. And of the workloads that are eligible for spot, it's, in excess of 90% of those workloads are actually running on spot. They're not falling back to you on demand. So we really got creative when we were looking at how to achieve supply-side efficiency. We also looked at what type of compute do we buy. Like, eventually we moved a lot of workloads to Graviton. Graviton, for those of you who don't know, it tends to be like cheaper because it's more energy efficient. Also, just it sometimes requires a change. Like I said, all of those microservices, not all of them, most of them are written in Clojure, runs in the JVM, so it was really easy for us to try out AWS's new chipset, right? Because we're already in the JVM. I feel like this is supposed to be like a peppy, like morning culture talk or something. I'm like talking about different chipsets. Sorry about that. But it was actually really cool. Okay, good. One person is okay with this. But it also, like, moving to Graviton expands what instance types are available on the spot market. And other people were kind of having a hard time migrating, and we're not, right? So then we have the more instance types you can run your workloads on, the more availability you'll have in the spot market, because it's just whatever excess compute happens to be there. So this is the point where, like, people are like, all I remembered from Kat's talk was that I should run 60% of my workloads on spot. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I actually came up with this disclaimer slide with people that work at AWS so that people did not just like leave my talk and go try to run everything on spot. It is not for everyone. Okay, so tons of disclaimers here, things you should know before you try to do that. The most important thing is that regardless of your cloud provider, the best way to achieve supply-side efficiency is to make a huge commitment with them, right? Because, again, they are in the business of moving physical things around. So that takes a long time, right? So if you can sign a long commitment with them, they will give you a better deal. In the absence of that, say if you're a startup that is acquiring just millions and millions of customers and you can't even really predict anything, then maybe you want to go with Spot. So, okay, everyone look at me. You're not all going to leave this room and try to run everything on Spot, right? Okay. Talk to me first, please. Okay. So we did a ton of things just to make sure that we're paying the best possible price for all of that compute that we were buying. The second thing that we did for a variety of reasons, but as it turns out, as many of you nerds will know, the answer is not just to throw more machines at everything forever. It turns into a really unfun time. So the other thing that we did was we looked at demand-side efficiency, and that's just buy less, like demand less from your provider, or if you're, I have the cloud infrastructure at Nubank, I also have the physical infrastructure at Nubank, so it could be like buy less from yourself, right? Okay, so you already know, like you're in this room, you already know the things that are like, decompose, decouple, so you can scale each thing independently, all that kind of stuff. I would like to talk about something that I don't think gets the attention that it should. So obviously, you see me, I'm very excited, unreasonably excited about the topic of efficiency. So I talk to tons of people at all sorts of companies about efficiency. And I think overwhelmingly, people focus on the cost of this application, the cost of this service, instead of what is the cost of a user performing this action. And I think that is a huge mistake, or at least it was a huge mistake for us at Nubank. So we had this assumption that we should zoom in on each service. Let's minimize the CPU that's needed for each service. And then we will have a very cheap ecosystem. Done. The reality was that we needed to look at minimizing the cost of an action that a user would perform. In this case, sending or receiving a Pix transaction, because we have to offer them for free. So I'll give you a couple examples, and if you thought that the chipsets and instance type part was like too much for 9 a.m., it doesn't get better. So let's talk about garbage collectors. We have this idea at Nubank that we should have canonical approaches consistently applied. So all the microservices look remarkably similar, okay? And that helps us because then when we make a change in that canonical approach, everyone can benefit. Sometimes it doesn't help, and this is one of those cases. So across the fleet, we're running the G1 garbage collector. Good. Lots of pauses, but very short, not that CPU intensive. Woohoo! As it turns out, for certain services, and not all of them, but certain services, it was actually better to run ZGC, which is more CPU intensive. So the cost of that service went up. There were fewer stop-the-world pauses, which meant that the flow, the user flow, was more efficient. Because for some of those services, a big stop-the-world pause caused like erratic behavior in the rest of the service or in the rest of the flow. And the rest of the flow, the services are kind of naive and they're like, I don't know what to do here. Should I scale up? Not good. So it's actually worth it to identify this group of services and use ZGC instead of 2.1. Same thing, we have a tool that every day says like, hey, service, about how much capacity you think you're going to need today, and kind of provision the services based on the historical data and also like, the flow of our business. And usually we would like provision them to like the P99 or something because we're trying to be efficient, so we don't want to over provision them. For some services, that was a huge mistake because even if we had like some requests that took much longer, it caused like thrashing in the scaling of other services in the flow. So again, like the cost of this service looks great. The cost of the flow looks like it inexplicably is going up despite each service being optimized. So my message to you when you're thinking about demand-side efficiency is to look at a user action and try to measure that rather than minimizing the cost of each service or each application. I'm worried that I see 3 people nodding their heads. We can argue about this later. I love arguing. So if you want to find me at lunch or something, like we can argue about it. It's cool. Oh, I should give this guy $20 for a nice segue. How did we track all of that? So I'm going to cover that in the culture change part. The first thing, some of you may have seen, Nubank appeared in Werner Vogel's keynote a few years ago, right? He came up with this frugal architect thing, and we inspired some of that. Yay! This is a great resource if you want to think about culture change in engineering around efficiency. He has like these laws. He actually does keep it updated, so there's like new examples and stories all the time. Whether you're on AWS or not, there's things that are like pretty broadly applicable. But I'm not going to talk about that because he already did. I am going to talk about some other things in our approach. So we had this team, I had this team that was called Cloud Efficiency, and it was responsible for looking at how efficient is the platform overall. And we made the shift into platforms financial management, which is a team that enables a new role in each business unit, and that's the cloud cost champion. So every business unit at Nubank now, if you're an established business unit, then you have a cloud cost champion. Each business unit is classified based on where they are in terms of product market fit and how much they spend. So if you are a business unit where most of your products have achieved product market fit, we think that you should be more predictable. And if you have a huge budget, you have no choice. You need to be predictable. So we have these cost champions that champion efficiency within each business unit, and they know what's going on for that business unit. They know about the customer flows, all of that kind of stuff. For us, how do we use it? It's not like a paid advertisement or anything. I just like this tool. After looking at a lot of them, we use Cloud Zero. There are lots of tools that do this, that offer you cost observability. And if you're looking for one, I would say make sure that it can do multiple clouds. Like, that's usually a good idea. And it's an even better tool if other like SaaS offerings that you have, that it can measure those so you can see like the all-in cost of a flow. And now we have, like most cloud costs and internal tools, is decentralized. So each business unit knows the cost that they are driving, and they have like a unit cost, a demand driver that they know, like, oh, Pix transactions drives this much cost and whatever else. So forecasting now is extremely accurate, within a few percent or something like that. Proceed with caution, again, because some things, there's like a perverse incentive. If you say, oh, I'm going to charge back everything, and you're charging back CI/CD, like, you want people to make less changes? Like, probably not, right? You want them to make a lot more changes, very small ones all the time. So we end up with this philosophy. This is a quote from the CTO of Cloud Zero, that every engineering decision is a buying decision. And that's the mentality that we try to drive in engineering. And I know that the title of my talk is there's a typo here, Quest for Responsible Efficiency. It should be Engineering's Efficiency Responsibility. I feel like we have a responsibility to be efficient, because otherwise we, Nubank, can't serve those customers, and no one else can either. So I know that efficiency gets a bad rap, right? And people are bummed out about it, but I actually feel like it's something super important, because it can be, yes, about rich people hoarding money, or it can be about offering access. When things are cheaper, we can offer them to people who couldn't afford them before, right? It can also be about sustainability. Graviton is cheaper because it consumes less electricity, right? If we demand less, if we are running efficiently, like, we are consuming fewer resources, and I believe that that is good for the world. So that's my thing. Thank you for considering this first thing in the morning. And thank you in advance for your help kind of rehabilitating the reputation of efficiency. It obviously needs it. I have 1 minute. Is there anyone who has a question? And while I'm taking a question, here's some bonus content that you can read on your own. Yes, sir?
Brazil cert that Visa MasterCard price by both face back as well.
Okay, the question is, how much does it save the country of Brazil to circumvent Visa, MasterCard, whatever the traditional payment rails? It doesn't always circumvent Visa or MasterCard, because you can do a Pix transaction that's from like your checking account. You can also do one like using your credit card. So it could be like you're using Pix rails and credit rails. I think, like, honestly, they've had a hard time quantifying it. So I think the numbers that mostly get thrown out are around fees, like how much in fees has it saved the ecosystem. And I don't know. I think they kind of stopped measuring it a couple years ago because the numbers were just astronomical, like billions and billions of dollars, US dollars, across the population. Brazil is a huge population, though, 220 million people or something like that. Yeah, so it's a tricky question to answer. Yes. Okay, I think I'm done. Thank you.